These six sportsmen are so famous, only one name needs to be said to instantly recognise them. And as they elevated themselves, it was as if they elevated us and suddenly everything was all right. They are the legends of the game. Fans will always argue who was the greatest footballer ever. And Argentine Diego Maradona will always be a contender. Maradona was born into poverty on the outskirts of Buenos Aires in 1960. Spotted by a talent scout at a mere 10 years of age, Maradona would amuse spectators with his wizardry aged 12 at First Division games. It was on the 20th of October 1976 that Diego Maradona made his professional debut with Argentinos Juniors, where he would play for 5 years before transferring to the Boca Juniors. Following the 1982 World Cup, Maradona was transferred to Barcelona, Spain, for a then record £5 million. A serious leg injury and a bout with hepatitis meant this was a difficult time for Maradona. But already there were hints of an ability to recover from setbacks that would break the will of mortal men. It was when he was transferred to Napoli, though, that Maradona reached the peak of his career. The fans adored him, and Napoli had its most successful era in history. On the international stage, Maradona found his greatest fame. He actually made his international debut aged just 16 in a match against Hungary in 1977 and played in his first World Cup in 1982. But the 1986 World Cup in Mexico was Diego Maradona's finest hour. Playing every minute of every Argentina game, he asserted his dominance and was the player of the tournament. His second goal in Argentina's quarter-final win over England would be later voted by FIFA as the greatest in the history of the World Cup. Maradona would play in 2 more World Cups for Argentina, but age and injury would take their toll, and his dominance would never be the same. Diego Maradona has battled many demons during his career, but the biggest of them all was his addiction to cocaine. It apparently began in the early 80s and continued until at least 2004. In retirement, Maradona suffered weight issues, and in 2004 he had a heart attack which nearly took his life. There were 3 false claims about his death, and in 2007, Maradona finally declared himself drug-free. Despite personal problems and a run-in with the Italian government over unpaid taxes, Diego Maradona can still pull a crowd. He has spent time as manager of 3 different clubs, and in 2006 was appointed coach of Argentina's national football team. A compact physique meant he could stand up well to the rigours of football. He was short but strong. And to those who saw him dribbling full speed down the left wing, only to deliver a bullet-like pass to a teammate or a miraculous shot on goal, it was as if your heart would skip a beat as you were overwhelmed with the elation of witnessing a legend of the game. FIFA named him football's ambassador to the world. The Brazilian government called him a national treasure. And if you only know one name in international football, that name is likely to be Pelé. Like Maradona, Pelé grew up in poverty. And legend tells us he was so poor that he actually learnt to play with a sock that was stuffed with newspaper and tied with string. Pelé made his debut for Santos on the 7th of September 1962, and by the age of 16 was the top scorer in the league. By 1962, many wealthy European clubs were hovering, but whether the Brazilian government prevented it or Pelé resisted the law, he remained at Santos for 17 years before transferring in 1972 to the United States, where he played for the New York Cosmos and in turn did more to elevate the sport than any other player. Even though Pelé's first match internationally for Brazil was a defeat, it was a great milestone, as he became the youngest player to score at international level. Pelé was not yet 17. At the 1958 World Cup, he was again the youngest to play in a World Cup final and scored 2 goals as Brazil beat Sweden 5-2. The 1962 World Cup was another success for Brazil, but not for Pelé, as he injured himself in the early part of the tournament. Pelé's appearance at the 1966 World Cup was marred by brutal fouling from opposition players, and he vowed never to play again, but later reversed his decision. The 1970 World Cup was Pelé's last, and in the final against Italy, he scored the opening goal and later assisted on 2 others, as Brazil coasted to an easy 4-1 win. Pelé's performance prompted this comment from Italian defender Tarcisio Bergnic. "I told myself before the game, he's made of skin and bone like everyone else, but I was wrong." Pelé was showered with all sorts of awards, both sporting and humanitarian, over the years. And for his deeds on the field, he was named Athlete of the Century by no less than 6 different organisations. In his life after football, Pelé is known for his humanitarian work for many different bodies. He was appointed United Nations Ambassador for Ecology and the Environment. And worked tirelessly to elevate these areas. As an ambassador for the sport of football, Pelé never stops giving back to the game and the fans. It is for this that he will always be revered as one of the legends of the game. Zinedine Zidane is France's contribution to this list of all-time legends of the game. Born in Marseille in 1972, he helped France to many a success at international level. At the age of 14, Zidane caught the eye of a talent scout from AS Cannes and was recruited to play for that club and stayed for 4 years. In 1996, after interest from many European clubs, Zidane reluctantly moved to Juventus. His time with Juventus was both successful and controversial, as he often came to the attention of umpires for rough play, including headbutting. But it was in 2001 that fans began to really know the name Zidane. He joined Real Madrid for a then world record fee of £75 million and signed a 4-year contract. It did not take long for Zidane to earn his keep, as he scored the match-winning goal to win them the 2002 UEFA Champions League final. Zidane played his last club game in 2006 for Villarreal CF, after he'd announced his plans to retire following the World Cup in 2006. Zidane's international career began as a substitute for France in a friendly against the Czech Republic in 1994. He scored twice in the match, which ended in a 2-2 draw. When Eric Cantona was suspended for a year after assaulting a fan, Zidane was elevated to chief playmaker, but was not an immediate success, as France were eliminated in the semi-finals of Euro '96 in a penalty shootout against the Czech Republic. But at the 1998 World Cup, Zidane scored twice in the final against the defending champions Brazil, and then with 2 goals in Euro 2000, helped France become the first country since West Germany in 1974 to hold both the World and European Cups. The next World Cup of 2002 did not go so well for Zidane. He sustained a thigh injury and was brought back too early, and France was embarrassingly eliminated in the group stage without scoring a single goal. France went on to be eliminated by Germany at Euro 2004, and Zidane announced his retirement from international football, only to come out of retirement 2 years later for the World Cup of 2006. Before the final match, Zidane was awarded the Golden Ball as the best player of the competition. But his temper got the better of him, and following verbal taunts, he was sent off in extra time for headbutting Italy's Materazzi. He did not participate in the penalty shootout, which Italy won 5-3. Zidane was allowed to keep his Golden Ball despite not apologising for the headbutting incident, saying later he would rather die than apologise to Materazzi. In retirement, Zidane is a goodwill ambassador for the UN, working tirelessly raising money for many different causes. Using his celebrity and his football prowess, Zidane drew 10,000 fans to a match in Thailand and raised much-needed funds for a children's aid charity. Apart from touring, he has also co-opted former Real Madrid teammate Ronaldo to stage the match against poverty in Spain. Zidane once said, "Everyone can do something to make the world a better place." And to all who have seen the legend in action, there is no doubt that he has done more than his little bit. In Germany, he was known as Der Kaiser, or the Emperor, because of his elegance and ability to lead. He is generally regarded as the greatest German footballer of all time, and more than qualifies as a legend of the game. Franz Beckenbauer. Born amongst the post-war ruins of Munich, Beckenbauer grew up in working-class roots, supporting 1860 Munich, and even dreamed of playing for them, but joined Bayern Munich instead. Beckenbauer became captain of Bayern Munich in 1968. And led them to their first league title. Then on to many more wins in the 70s, including a hat-trick of Euro Cup wins in the mid-70s. In 1977, Beckenbauer accepted a lucrative contract to join another legend of the game, Pelé, at the New York Cosmos, where he played for 4 years. In domestic leagues, Beckenbauer made 587 crowd-pleasing appearances and scored 81 goals. Beckenbauer played for his country 103 times, scoring 14 goals. He played in 3 World Cups, including 1974's, when Beckenbauer led West Germany to a 2-1 win over the highly fancied Netherlands side. He also had mixed success at Euro Championship level, winning in 1972 and losing the 1976 Championship on penalties to Czechoslovakia. The trophy and awards cabinet at the Beckenbauer household must be quite a sight. Around 22 team trophies as a player alone. Add another 20-odd individual awards, then the awards Beckenbauer receives as a manager, and you get the picture of a player much loved by the fans and rewarded handsomely by the football establishment. Upon retirement, Beckenbauer returned from the New York Cosmos and was appointed team manager of the West German national team. He took the team to the World Cup final in 1986, a game they sadly lost to Argentina. But in 1990, victory was his, as he led the German team without East German players to victory over Argentina 1-0. He later went on to head Germany's successful bid for the 2006 World Cup. Franz Beckenbauer was a major success at every level of the great game. And if only for that reason, qualifies as a legend of the sport. Was there any other player more loved by all of Britain than Sir Robert "Bobby" Charlton? Born to a family of professional footballers, Charlton was part of the talented and famous Busby Babes, who were nurtured by legendary Manchester United coach Matt Busby. He played almost all of his club football with Manchester United, and many who saw him could never forget his ferocious long-range shots for goal. At age 20, Bobby Charlton survived the Munich air crash of 1958, in which 7 Manchester United players perished at the scene. In weeks to come, the crash would claim a total of 23 lives, devastating the team and shocking a nation and the world. Somehow, United made the final of the FA Cup in 1958. But sadly, even a side that rode the back of a nation's sentiment could not complete the fairy tale and lost to Bolton Wanderers 2-0. In 1968, Bobby Charlton captained Manchester United to victory in the European Cup and still holds the club record for most league appearances. Bobby Charlton played for his country a total of 106 times, which was a record at the time, and has scored more goals for England and Man U than any other player. But surely Bobby Charlton's greatest international moment was playing in England's last World Cup victory in 1966. He had a rather quiet game, nullified ironically by another legend of the game, Franz Beckenbauer. Great celebrations followed the victory, and a grateful country went crazy as the famous and the fans feted this champion team. England began the 1970 World Cup, which was Charlton's last in fine style, with 2 victories, but were later defeated by Brazil and West Germany. And at 32, Bobby Charlton's international career was over. After leaving Man U briefly upon his retirement, Bobby Charlton was given the keys to the city and works tirelessly raising money for cancer hospitals and landmine clearance. He revealed in 2007 that he had rarely spoken to his brother Jack since the 1960s, and often clashed with another Man U legend, George Best. But the fans loved the guy who, despite losing his hair in the 60s, refused to go bald gracefully. The nearly always smiling Sir Bob, Bobby Charlton. George Best was a handsome, flawed genius of a footballer who managed to be loved, loathed, loved again, and then pitied in his short but never dull career in life. George Best grew up in Belfast, and despite being academically gifted, he never liked to stay at school much. The telegram to Man U's legendary coach Matt Busby from talent scout Bob Bishop read, "I think I've found you a genius." Best made his debut at the age of 17. And soon became far bigger than the club, with his boyish good looks and long hair. George Best, like most legends, had his moments. And finally, after 3 times threatening, he walked out on Manchester United for good in 1974. And went on to play for many clubs all over the world, from South Africa to the United States. Plus stints at Fulham, Bournemouth and many others. He ended his professional career exactly 20 years to the day he joined Man U, with a brief full-match stint for the Brisbane Lions in Australia in 1984. Internationally, George Best played 39 times for Northern Ireland and scored 9 goals. His cheekiness and artistry ignited all who saw him. Best was considered briefly for the 1982 World Cup team. But by then, at age 36, his skills were dulled by age and sadly drink. In his career and his personal life, George Best was always the handsome playboy who had it all. With his good looks and wonderful sporting prowess, he was popular with both women and men. Everyone wanted to be and be with George Best. Best suffered from alcoholism for most of his adult life, yet always seemed to be having the best time. He had a successful liver transplant in 2002 after it failed due to excessive drinking, and caused more controversy when he was spotted drinking again some months later. In the early hours of November 25, 2005, aged 59, George Best died. The most flawed, but equally the most loved of all football legends.